everyone, and welcome back to Book Talk with Kara. It is such a pleasure to have you with us today and to introduce you to my friend Amanda Wen. Today, we're going to talk about her brand new book, Echoes of a Silent Song. But before we get into that, Amanda, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself and talk just a little bit about your writing, and then we'll launch into your book?
Okay, sure. Well, like Kara said, I'm Amanda Wen, and I'm a Wichita, Kansas native. I'm a professional musician. So when I'm not writing books, I'm playing a gig somewhere most of the time. I have a wonderful husband who's an acupuncturist, and I have three hilarious teenage kids known on social media as the Wenlets. So we coined that nickname when they were much smaller than they are now, but it stuck. So they're going to be the Wenlets, even now that like two of them are taller than I am, they're still the Wenlets.
I love that. And okay, before we get into this, I have to ask, what do you play?
I play piano and cello. So my
wow.
degrees are in cello performance. My day job is as a choir accompanist, which will inform this book a little bit. Because one of the characters in that book has my job. But yeah, so I have music degrees, and then I decided to become a writer.
I love it. Well, and they're both creative in different ways.
Yes.
And I wondered if your day job played into this book because it's all about music. And I know sometimes my day job will kind of overlay my books. So when you were coming up with this idea, how much of it sprang out of what you do on a day-to-day basis, and how much of it came from just completely out of the blue?
I'd say a lot of like the setting and stuff came directly out of my day job. Like the choir room that I'm seeing in the book is our choir room. But the characters in the book are not based on anyone I know. Like the accompanist is not me. The choir director is not any of the choir directors I've worked with. The kids, some of them were inspired by some of the kids that I have had in my choirs over the years. Some of them were pure figments of my imagination. The scenario was entirely conjured up based on kind of I think the inspiration came from a few years ago when we were COVID years and the kids were remote for a little while. My choir director and I decided to kind of take advantage of, hey, we have some time without kids. Let's reorganize the choir library, because he'd been wanting to do that for a while and hadn't had time. So we did that. And while we were cleaning that out, I had this spark of an idea, like, what if you found this piece in the choir library, like that was really amazing, and you didn't know who wrote it? And what if it was written by a student, maybe? What if it was written by somebody who maybe disappeared or whatever? So I was working on something else at the time. So I sort of put a pin in that idea, wrote it down. I have like this whole file on my computer of book ideas for someday, and I put it in there. And then it was time to come up with a new series. And I was like, this is when I can write that book.
I love that. And I love when those little sparks will happen, and then you just kind of have to let them marinate for a little while. So with Echoes of a Silent Song, you've got dual timeline going on, and you've got this mystery surrounding this musical piece, which it's kind of fun because I was in Prague this summer for study abroad. And one of the things I was talking with someone else at Purdue who takes students on study abroad to the Lobkowitz Castle, and they do this restoration work on different pieces. And one of the things that someone had worked on before was a musical composition that had been played one time for the royal family for a birthday 300 years ago. And when they got all their things back post-communism, it was one of the things that they kind of had laid out there for, okay, who wants to work on this? But it had never been played since.
Wow.
And no one knew about it. And if I could remember the composer, you'd be like, oh, I know who that is, because it's someone who's famous from the 1700s. And I was like, that's so cool. Imagine being a college student who gets to work on this piece and learn the history of it and transpose it and kind of bring it back to life. And in a sense, that's kind of what's happening in this book, is you discover this lost music, and they're trying to figure out what's the history of it, where did it come from. So I mean, it's clear you were the person who had to write this story. You've got like all the experience and all the background for it. But why now? Why in this time? And why do it as dual timelines?
Why right now? I mean, the pragmatic reason is I needed to come up with a book idea, and I had one, and this was like, okay, it's time to come up with a new series, because my first series with Kriegel wrapped up with my third book that just came out last year. Yeah, last year. So I needed a new series ideas, and I kind of wanted to go in a little bit more of a mystery direction. Not really like, it's not suspense. It's not like those genre expectations are not necessarily there. It's a lot more just mystery, investigation, what happened to this person? Why do it as dual timeline? I've always written dual timeline. That's kind of my jam. My agent says that it's because I like to do things the hard way, which she's not wrong. I do, but my mom is a genealogist. She has traced our family history for longer than I've been alive. So I have always grown up with just this undercurrent of knowing the stories of our family and where we came from, and how like the history of the United States is also the history of our family, because we came over, I think, not on the Mayflower, because my family tends to shy away from famous historical events. We like to be like on the second and third boat that came over after the Mayflower. And so we've been here since 16 whatever. And like, so every time we'd study something in history class, I'd be like, oh, the Civil War, I had an ancestor that fought in the Iron Brigade. And, oh, the American Revolution, I had people that fought in that. It was very personal to me. And I think just kind of growing up with this knowledge of my family history and how it informs the present, I think split time was just kind of an obvious fit for me, because I think the past is incredibly relevant. And I think that, things that we learn about history inform the here and now. So that's, split time. And, when you are investigating something like, okay, well, who was this person that wrote this music? What was their story? Split time is like, hey, I can write that. I can, you don't have to wonder. You can have it. Here's the story.
I love that. And it does. It makes so much sense for this book. But there are a lot of people who are like, never going to do it. And I've always thought it would be fun and a neat challenge to write the double timelines. But one of the questions I always have for people is, when you're doing dual timeline, do you write each timeline separately and then weave them together? Or do you write them at the same time and just go back and forth between the timelines?
I usually write them at the same time. So I'm going back and forth. It keeps my little ADHD squirrel brain from getting bored. Because if I spend too long in one timeline, I'm like, okay, this is boring. What's going on in the other story? So, and I find that it makes it easier to weave it together if I'm writing it in the order that the reader will read it. So there's very little puzzle piece putting together when I'm done. Occasionally, I think in some books I have had to, this scene that I thought was here actually needs to go here. But for the most part, once I'm done with the draft, it's organized the way that the reader will read it. And that, that helps me know, like, how many past scenes do I need? How many present scenes do I need? I think I just kind of have this instinctual feel for, okay, it's time to switch timelines now.
Yeah, well, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to, that's kind of how they do it. Because I've always wondered, because part of me goes, well, it might be easier to write just both separately and then weave them together. But it seems like most people are like, no, I just go back and forth between the two, which I think is just really interesting.
I feel like if you have started maybe like writing pure historical or pure contemporary, then it might be easier to just write one story at a time, but then you'd have the challenge of putting it together. But since I didn't really ever, like, my first book was split time, so I haven't really ever written anything other than that. So it just kind of was this very organic thing for me. I did write a novella a couple of years ago for Kriegel that they wanted it was purely a historical, and it's a novella. You cannot do a split time novella because it's too short. But I'm writing this thing and I'm going, oh, well, what would happen if blah, blah. And then what's this doing now? And then I'm like, no, Janaire and Deb are writing that part. You need to stick in your lane and write your timeline. It was weird writing just a single timeline. It almost felt harder.
Yeah. Because you have to, and novellas are so short that when you're used to writing these bigger stories with lots of layers, and then a novella's got like one layer and one subplot, if you're lucky. And that's about it. That's about all you can really do well.
Yeah, novella that was an interesting challenge. Like, I would do it again. It was just like, oh, I have to do just as much research for a novella as I would for a novel, but I don't get to write as much. which like for me, research is what I do so I can write. Like I know a lot of writers, like we love the research part and we research, we write so we have an excuse to like learn all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I research what I have to know to write the story. And then it's like, okay, that's it. That's enough research for me. It's one of the reasons I wanted to write this book is because the research for the present timeline is being done every single day when I go to work. I don't have to do any extra. Like, I know what I'm talking about with what an accompanist's life is like because I am one. So, you know, it was a book that I didn't have to research much for. So that was nice.
Yeah, that would be a nice change. So, speaking of research, what's something that you learned during the research for this book that you couldn't include? That you're like, man, it would have been really cool to add this, but it just didn't fit.
I think two things, just all the choral music out there in the world. It's just so good. And like being a cellist, I went to school for cello. So I specifically remember sitting in music history class, learning like the early music where it was purely vocal, like the cello hadn't even been invented yet. And I'm sitting there going, I don't need to know this. I'm a cellist. My instrument doesn't exist yet. Okay, just check the box, move on. I am never, ever going to need to know anything about vocal music. And of course, God is up there laughing at me like, just wait. But I don't even know where I was going with that. But okay. So I've been discovering choral music like as I have done my job. Like I paid more attention to instrumental music in college, but now it's like, so when this was going on in cello world, this was going on in choir world. And like, there's so much great music out there that I wanted to include, but how do you write music in a book? Like music expresses what words can't. So you can't really, like, I could not capture the music in the book. But then the other thing I think, our past heroine deals with some mental health struggles. And it was in a time when mental health was not nearly as understood and treated as well as it is today. And I had this image of like what would have happened if she had gone to like a mental hospital or something, and I could have explored what that would have been like for her, but the story just didn't go that way. Like it just there wasn't room for it. That's not where the characters took the story. So I didn't include any of that, but I wish I had been able to.
Yeah, I can see that. And for the music, you could create a Spotify playlist.
I could. And I probably will. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And then you could just have that like on your website and stuff. If you want to hear the music, this is what I had in mind. And that would be really cool. Because for some of us who are like, I mean, I love music and stuff, but I wouldn't know exactly what you have in your mind as you're thinking about the characters in the story and what the high school students or whatever are singing. And that would be really a fun way to layer in that element that's hard to capture in words because it's such a sensory experience.
I'll have to go back through and see if I mentioned specific pieces. I think I only mentioned a couple, but we'll see.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
You can just add in like, here are the type of songs that I'm thinking about as I write this.
Or like, here's stuff my choir has done.
Yeah, exactly. I think readers would find that so fascinating because you are an expert in that space. So what's your biggest challenge as an author?
Finding time to do it. And I think there's probably something you can relate to.
Yeah.
When we have a day job that we love and we're good at, and I have had people ask me, so when are you going to quit music and just be a full-time author? And my answer is always, hopefully never. Like, that's never my plan. I don't want to quit my day job. I love my day job. And I feel like the two halves of like writing helps inform my music and music helps inform the writing. And, when I'm tired of writing, usually then it's time to go to work and be with choir kids. And when I'm tired of them, I can come home and escape into fiction for a little bit. And then of course I have my own kids and they're all teenagers now. I have 2 kids in high school. My oldest is a junior. Graduation is coming at us like a freight train. And like, I just found out this past week that our district has started planning calendars out 2 years in advance. So now I know his graduation date. That was like a reality moment. Like, this is no longer a someday thing. This is a May 12th, 2027 thing. So for me, it's just trying to balance like the time that I need to practice and the times that I'll have rehearsals and concerts and other things, and then my kids' activities, and then I have a book deadline, and so it's always
weaving it all together.
Yeah. It's kind of like organizing a split time novel, only with my schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, because you're so creative on the music side, when did you first know that you were a writer? Because you're already really creative. You're already operating in the right brain a lot. So, was it something that just kind of it was a natural add-on, or was it something that came to you slowly?
Well, I have written stories my whole life just for fun. Like I can't remember a time when I wasn't coming up with stories in my head. And my dad, when I was little, he encouraged me to write them down. So I did. And I always had, my friends in school and we would come up with stories together. And a fun fact, both of my friends are also published authors. So
Oh,
like
that's
my
so
elementary
cool.
and middle school besties that I wrote stories with, we're all published now. So that's kind of
That's
fun. But so that was kind of humming in the background. And I loved music and I couldn't imagine life without it. So that's what I ended up majoring in. Like, I don't think it ever occurred to me to study anything else but music. But then when I got done with school, I was just married and I finally was not in college anymore because I have a master's. So I had been in college for like 7 years and I didn't take any gap years. So I had the age 5 to age 25, I was in school. And then when I was done with school, I was kind of like, well, what do I do now? Because musicians don't graduate and just get a day job. We have gigs and we kind of have to spend some time getting ourselves established. And, in Champaign-Urbana, everybody knew who I was. So I had gigs, but during the day, my husband was at work. I was at home. I was bored. And I remember one night I had a dream and it was this story that, of course, now I don't even really remember it, but I was like, how does that story come out? Like, what happened next? And so the only thing I could think of to do was to sit down at the computer and write it. And I did.
yeah.
And I spent that whole day like, oh, well, then this might happen. And then this might happen. And like, my husband comes home from work. I'm still in my pajamas. I'm at the computer. And he's like, what have you been doing all day? And I said, I think maybe I'm a writer. And he goes, okay. He is
That's
just the
awesome.
most chill and laid back person in the universe, which is great because I'm not. So we balance each other very well. So he responded to I think I might be a writer with, okay, yeah, that's cool. Whatever.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, so I started, I kept writing and I posted some stuff like just to a few friends and they're like, this is really good, keep going. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at this and maybe I like it and maybe I should look into this too. Because a lot of my teachers in like elementary and high school, they were like, you are a really good writer. You should think about getting published someday. And so that was always kind of a, yeah, maybe someday. And it finally, like, I took it seriously mid 2010s is when I really started, okay, let's see if this can even happen.
That's awesome. And it did, which is
It
so
did.
cool.
Yeah.
So, if you were to go back and, in this journey, what would you tell your younger writing self, whether that was when you were in school and writing down these stories or in the early 2010s when you're like, okay, I think I'm going to actually chase publication? What would you go back and tell yourself now that you are multi-published and you've been at this a while?
I would tell myself that those people that tell you that you're good at writing, they kind of do know what they're talking about and that this is something you should pursue, but that you don't have to give up anything to do it. Like you can do the music and you can do the writing and yeah, your life is going to be a little insane sometimes, but you can keep doing everything that you love doing and to be patient because my younger self was, the whole like I'm not published and it seems like everybody around me is getting a book contract and I'm getting rejections and I'm not hearing back from the publisher that's had my book for a year and a half and blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I would just tell my younger self, you have no idea what is going to come out of this. And don't give up and don't get frustrated. And when it is time, it will happen. And my younger self probably would have been like, what do you know? Because that's what I would have said every time somebody said, be patient, it'll happen. And I'd be like, yeah, how do you know that? And I would be like, because I'm you in 2025.
Yeah. And it all worked out and it was all great.
Yeah,
But it was a lot of work and it was a
it
lot of
was.
juggling. And
Yes.
that's part of, I think when you have something that's that passion and that dream, it does become okay, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to kind of sacrifice? How are you willing to make it happen? But if you are, then usually in time, God will open those doors and
Yeah.
it'll happen.
And he will
So
open those doors when it is the right time. Because like one of the things
yeah,
that somebody told me was like, you have no idea who needs to read your book at this specific time in their life. And maybe,
yeah,
maybe it's a waiting for you because they're not ready to get the message that they're going to need to get from the book. Like maybe it's not time for them yet. Maybe it has nothing to do with you. But so that
yeah,
kind of helped. It's like God knows everybody that is going to read every single one of my books, and he knows their stories, and he knows what's going on, and he knows what they need to get out of it. And that goes for like every author. And it's just kind of mind-boggling that he knows all of that. And the timing just works out perfectly, because I know there are books that I have read at a specific time in my life that I
yeah.
really, really needed. Like, I think I read Sarah Brunsvold's Mrs. Kipp book, The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp. And I read it, I think, the summer before my dad died. But I had no
Mm.
idea that that was coming. But I had read that book. And I remember as he was dying, I remember thinking, I remember this from the Mrs. Kipp book. Like, God used that book to prepare me for what was coming.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool. So when think about this book that, Echoes of a Silent Song, and when you think about it, what's one thing that you hope readers will take from it?
Um, Without spoiling anything, it's kind
Yeah,
of hard.
exactly.
But I'm hoping that they will take that, God has a plan for everyone, even if it doesn't look anything like what you think that it should. Like the past heroine, her life is quite short. And a lot of us would think, man, what a waste. But I feel like she accomplished what she needed to accomplish in that short lifetime.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't even know where I'm going with this, but that kind of thing. It's like, we think from our perspective that she didn't get to do what she was put on the earth to do, but hopefully in the book you can kind of see that, well, she did. Yes, there
Yeah,
could have been more, but God chose something different and better for her.
yeah, I love that. And that's often how it works. We only
Uh-huh.
see a small part,
Yeah.
and he sees the bigger tapestry.
Yeah.
So, how many hours a day do you write?
Usually I try to get in a couple hours, because that's my typical day would look like, okay, I get my kids off to school, and then I have the morning to do whatever I need to do, and then I leave for work about 11:45. So I have, 3, 4 hours in there, and I have to, like, any fitness stuff I want to do, any cleaning stuff I want to do, and any writing stuff. Like, so some days writing does not happen. Some
Hmm.
days the other stuff doesn't happen, but I'd say on average 1 to 2 hours a day of writing when I'm actively like writing a book.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a key piece too. It all depends on
Yeah,
deadlines and
yeah, it
how
does.
often,
I mean,
if you're writing one book a year or 2 books a year, all those kinds of things.
right.
And when you're writing, as we begin to wrap up, a couple of quick questions. Do you like sweet or salty snacks?
I like sweet and salty mixed together. Like anything with salt caramel in it is going to be my best friend.
Oh, I like that. And do
Yes.
you drink like tea or coffee? Are you a water girl? What's your thing?
Yes, I will drink all of the above. Usually in the morning, it is a hot cup of coffee or 2 or 3. And then in the afternoon, I switch to either iced tea or iced coffee. And it doesn't really matter what the weather is. It's like morning is for hot drinks and afternoon is for iced drinks.
I love that. Yeah, and it's I try to do my coffee in the morning and then I switch to my water.
Yeah,
But some days are better than
that's what I'm
others.
doing.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Some days it's like, okay, I need another jolt of the caffeine.
Hmm.
And then if there's one thing, does the writing energize you or does it exhaust you?
It kind of depends on the day,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, there are some days and some like periods of my life where it has been like when I first started, it was the thing I wanted to do, like to the point that I didn't even really want to do music anymore. I just wanted to write all the time.
Yeah.
And now that it is my job, that has kind of gone away. And sometimes it feels like homework. I mean, it really sometimes does. And it's like, I don't really want to write today, but deadlines are a thing. And so I need to sit down and do it. And usually once I do it, then I don't always enjoy doing it, but I'm always glad that I have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Yeah,
you know, I'd say
deadlines
that's
are real.
50-50. And it also depends on like what phase I'm in. Because honestly, the drafting part is kind of the slog for me because I know that it's just shoveling sand into the sandbox. But the revising part is when I build castles. And so, like, developmental edits are usually the hardest part, but they're also kind of fun because then once you get done with them, it's like, oh, wow, this book is so much better than I ever could have made it. And also, my developmental editor is an absolute rock star and I adore her. So, shout out to Janir Tromp. I love you.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Yes.
We're both fortunate to have shared her.
Yes.
Okay, so where can readers learn more about you and your books?
Best place is my website, which is amandawen.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there. You can learn all about my books. There's a freebie there. There's a free short story that I wrote a long time ago that also has to do with choir. So that's a good little teaser for this book.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And it was so fun to talk with you.